Like always, today's episode is brought to you by our amazing sponsors: gluten-free diet water, premium junk clothing, Williamson wines, and Good Dudes coffee. Gluten-free diet water. Stay hydrated with a refreshing twist, perfect for those health-conscious listeners. Premium junk clothing, for those who love to express their unique style with high-quality fashion pieces. Visit premiumjunkclothing.com and use code EverydayGSD15 at checkout. Williamson Wine, natural artesian wine from Napa and Sonoma. And last but not least, Good Dudes Coffee, veteran-owned by former Navy SEAL Josh Bridges, and where every cup is brewed with passion and dedication to quality. Visit their website at gooddudescoffee.com and use discount code EverydayGSD10 for an exclusive offer. Thanks to our sponsors for supporting the show, and now let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to the Everyday GSD Podcast, Hollywood Edition. Today's special guest, Joe Hogue.
Hey.
Did I say it right?
You did.
Awesome. Well, I've got a couple big words I'm going to try to pronounce here real quick. You are a musician, a Grammy, Emmy, Dove Award-winning songwriter and producer.
Yes.
And I have a bunch more stuff on you, but instead of me just reading all of that, I would love just to jump right into this.
Sure.
And have you talk about your 35 years of experience, award-winning everything. How did it all start? I mean, obviously, we're in Hollywood right now. We're in California.
Yeah.
You weren't born here. You're not from here.
No, I grew up in Central Florida.
Central Florida?
Yeah. A little town called Plant City.
Ooh, Plant City.
Yeah.
Sounds like there's probably a lot of singers coming from there, musicians.
More than you would think. It's just a little...
Oh, and I was just kidding.
It's a little town that's caught in a time capsule, and it's
okay.
In between Tampa and Orlando in Florida.
Nice. Okay, so what got you into the music world?
Well, I grew up... My whole family was musical.
Okay.
And so I grew up in church.
Okay.
Very conservative in the South, and we sang as a family. I learned how to sing three-part harmony just in the car with my mom, dad, brother, and sister.
Okay.
So it was a cool upbringing. You know, we were just from very humble background and just made the best of it. But definitely grew up singing church music, religious music.
And that's the Dove Award, right?
Ultimately I moved to Nashville and produced a lot of Christian music. So I just jumped
way ahead, didn't I?
You did, by a couple decades.
Let's back it back up then. Okay, so you're a little kid singing in church.
Well, yeah, just even when I was a toddler, my mom and my older sister played piano. We had one at the house, and I would just start picking things out by ear.
Okay.
So I'd learn melodies just by hearing it. So then by kindergarten, they put me in piano lessons, and then that's just started my whole love of music.
And so then what happened when you were, after you were a little kid and singing at church? Because, I mean, you've sold 15 million records worldwide, right?
Yeah, I've produced, been a part of probably more than that, but that's a good number. But
it's a pretty big number, people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's some everyday GSD shit right there.
Get shit done. Yeah, no, so I moved to Nashville right out of high school. So all through school, I was taking piano, singing, performing, getting out of school to perform, and my teachers hated me.
Right.
But that's all I knew. I was going to either die trying to do it or do it.
Right. And that seems to be the theme with a lot of people that we interview on our shows.
Well, it's just, I was just all about music. I mean, I was born into music. So, so I toured with this Christian group in like 85 to 86.
Okay.
And it was pay your dues, kind of like 20 people on a bus and a semi, and we had to set up all the gear and perform and stay in people's houses, but it was a good learning experience.
Right.
We went to all kind of churches all over the country.
Like you said, kind of pay your dues.
Yeah, and then from there I had met a Christian artist that had left a big group, the Imperials, and then he was getting a record deal. And so he asked me to move and to play for him. So I left that group, moved to Nashville. When I went home to move, though, it's funny, my parents had an old Delta 88 diesel, but the diesel died like they all did. And so it had sat in the yard for a year.
The Oldsmobile, right?
Yeah. And so when I was moving to Nashville, I didn't have a car, so they're like, well, you can have it, but you're going to have to put a new engine in it. So I got me a little bit of loan because I was poor, young musician. And so I got a new engine, just enough money to maybe get me to Nashville. And on my way up, about an hour and a half out of town, all the tires shredded because they had rotted sitting in the yard in Florida. Oh, right. So all my extra money went to buy 4 new tires to get to Nashville. So when I got there, I ended up staying with a friend's boyfriend. They went to Belmont College, or Belmont University now, but back then it was college. And he just let me stay on a mattress in his dorm, and I would use their food card to go eat. And
Right.
But broke. But, that was living the dream. Of course, everybody thought I'd made it, even though I was incredibly broke. And
this is now you're in Nashville.
I'm in Nashville. Right. This is 86.
So are you done with the Christian touring or the Christian?
Just the touring, and then that relocated me to Nashville. Made, just network, met people, and then I went door to door down Music Row. I wanted to get a publishing deal.
Right.
I was this young writer, and so one of the first places I went was this place called Lorenz Music Group, and I show up, and they're like, "Do you have an appointment?" I was like, "No, I'm new to town, and I have songs. I just want to get a publishing deal." And they're like, "Well, you can't just show up."
You're like, "Here I am."
So I'm like, "Oh, sorry." They're like, "Well, while you're here, you could see our A&R guy." And so they actually ended up signing me, even though they reprimanded me from not. But I didn't know what to do.
That's GSD,
yeah.
That's some GSD right there.
So they signed me, and so that just started my whole Nashville career. And then I ended up getting into studio work, and from arranging and playing, just doing.
So I got to back it up because we just passed over like that. That was no big deal. You literally just knocked on a door. You were knocking on doors, and you went to one door and you said, "Hey, I want you guys to hear my music.
Songs. I want you to sign my music."
And they're like, "That's not how it works." And you're like, "While you're here, we can let you talk to someone." And they signed you.
Yeah.
And he just laughs about it.
Well, I didn't know any better. I mean, they literally got onto me like, "Yeah, you can't just show up." And I'm like,
you're like, "Yeah."
Nobody told me that. I didn't know, but thanks for signing me.
Right.
So then I just started doing more studio work. And I was playing with all the guys that I had grew up just reading their credits. So it was a little intimidating.
Yeah.
But a great
Do you have
learning
some
experience.
examples of some people that you played with back then?
Well, being in Christian music, growing up.
This isn't still in the Christian music.
Yeah, and growing up very conservative, I was mainly only allowed to listen to Christian music.
Okay.
So that was my whole world until I got probably more in high school and I started exploring more like
Right.
R&B and pop and blues and stuff like that. But so I was the most familiar with it. But I mean, the session players in Nashville are they're some of the best in the world. So just finally getting called to do these records with these icons that you just grew up.
Right.
If anything was wrong, I knew it was me. It was just like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And they're like, "Stop it. You wouldn't be here if you're not good."
Yeah. Right.
So you had to get over yourself.
Yeah.
Which you end up being a better musician when you're confident.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So when I've taught over the years too, that's especially singers, like that's the number one thing is confidence.
Right.
Well, it's really in everything.
Yeah.
Sports,
I think it's with anything. Right.
You got to be confident. So, that was just, and then I was fortunate enough to just work my way up as a producer, and I started working with a lot of labels there. Did predominantly a lot of Christian music.
Okay.
Everybody says, "Well, you're in Nashville. Did you do country?" I did some, but there's like a million country players.
Right.
That they just want to focus on that. And so I ended up doing more pop, R&B, gospel type stuff. And then I ended up doing a lot of TV scoring in Nashville as well.
Okay.
So that's where the Emmy and all that stuff came into play.
Yeah.
But a lot of the Christian artists, I worked with.
How old were you when you got your Emmy?
That was in 1995. So I was 30.
30. And how old were you when you first got your Grammy?
That was probably in 92, a few years before that. So late 20s.
What was it like winning an Emmy? I mean, you go up on stage and you get an Emmy or the Grammy. Like what?
Well,
because like we watch it on TV as a nod, and it seems
well,
like
it's
just
back then. The Grammys, they weren't so free with the trophies. So they would give you a certificate, and they would give like the artists a trophy. And the only producers that got a trophy is if it was the album of the year, the one main album, or if you were producer of the year. Now they give, if you work on a project that won, you will get one.
Right.
So
you think that's okay? You think that's good or no?
I mean, it's when you say you've been a part of Grammy-winning records, that people would like to see that. So would that be nice? Because I even worked with some groups where they had like 6 members and they would only give them like 4 trophies. It was just really, it didn't make any sense. Now that it makes much more sense. But back in the 90s, it was a little more difficult. But so I didn't really go. Plus, I was a musician, which your incomes goes up and down and up and down. And all of a sudden you owe, taxes. And so it was just never easy for me to go.
Okay.
And the same with the Emmys. I didn't go. And I was married at the time, and my ex-wife didn't feel the need for me to go to New York to go to the Emmys. But then I won, so that was cool.
Right.
Then they just shipped me the
was
trophy.
the Emmy for an A&E?
Yeah, the Arts and Entertainment Network, which is most people know it. It's A&E. I scored the Biography theme, the show Biography, which now they have the whole Biography Network.
Right.
So that was in '95, and that was actually that Emmy was one of the first 2 Emmys that A&E had won. Was for the score, yeah. So that was cool.
That's very cool.
Yeah, and then just through a lot of the TV stuff, I launched a lot of networks. Like when History Channel came out, I wrote their logo musically, their logo, and HGTV when they launched, I wrote their first logo.
I got to back it up a little bit. Do you think if you would have, when you were knocking on those doors, if you wouldn't have got in that door and you kept hearing no, 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 do you think you'd be sitting here today?
I think so, because I didn't know. I mean, that's all I knew how to do.
Right.
It was all I was good at. I mean,
you weren't taking no for an answer.
Well, it wasn't an option.
Right.
So you just do what you love, and I was always taught, if you do what you love, you never work. So
that's true.
And so a lot of people can't believe I'm as old as I am. So I'm like, well, I've always been happy. I've always done what I've loved.
Right.
From day one.
So when did you leave Nashville?
I left Nashville in 2004.
Oh, so you stayed in Nashville for a while?
Yeah, I was there for 18 years.
Oh, okay.
So I worked out of there. Really had a great career. Worked with so many cool people, from big Christian artists, even Christian artists like with Whitney would sing on it, or and then I also did a lot of pop R&B there. I worked with Michael McDonald from the Dewey Brothers and David Pack from Ambrosia and Kelly Price and Faith Evans, and got to actually, funny thing, I worked on projects with artists that had passed away. So I worked with Roy Orbison on a song. His wife had donated a live performance of him singing Pretty Papers on a TV show for this Special Olympics record. So they hired me to come into a studio in Nashville and take that live TV recording, which was old, and then me add strings and piano and upright bass, which I all played myself, just to keep it simple. But that was really cool because they wanted it to sound like he was actually there with the live band or orchestra.
Right.
So that was really cool to do that. And then I also got to mix Etta James' track that she did live up in San Francisco with the Roots Band. So that was cool.
That's
just to hear those old tracks and Etta James. Because I'm a blues guy. I love anything that makes you feel something, whether it grooves hard or just has that soul.
Who's your favorite blues singer? Is that too
Wow. No, I love Etta. And then even the old school stuff like Billie Holiday.
Yeah.
Just some of that, where they just got that something about it.
Right.
It makes you get that stank look in your face.
Stank look in your face.
Yeah. And then, I, over the years, got to work with, more pop type artists. Like I said, worked with BB and CeCe Winans, which Whitney sang on some of the projects that I worked on. And the R&B artists, Kelly Price, Faith Evans, and.
So when did you leave working in the Christian music?
I never left it.
Okay.
Officially. In 2001, I kind of came out of the closet.
Okay.
Which was, I tried to keep it under the radar, but the media didn't like that.
Right.
So it became huge news, and you can Google my name and read all about my divorce.
My listeners probably will.
It became a big, huge thing. And it was partly, just coming out in Christian music is a big no-no.
Right.
And that was a big reason.
Because there's no gays that are Christian.
Well, yeah. Don't get me started. That's a whole nother podcast.
That's a
whole nother podcast. Yeah, it is sort of. But, anyway, everything happens for a reason.
Right.
It was tough, and I was just going through custody battle and that whole thing. I don't wish divorce on anybody.
Right.
It sucks.
How many children do you have?
Just one.
He or she? Boy or girl?
He's.
Does he play music?
He's got a great ear, but he was a very independent child.
Okay.
And so he didn't want to do what Dad did.
Yeah, fair enough.
He has a great ear, and he's a huge lover of music, and he's great at business. I always hoped, and ultimately maybe he'll just manage.
Yeah.
entertainment because he's really good at business, but
Right.
he loves music. He's now like 31 years old. So,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's an adult.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we're best friends, and
I love it.
yeah.
You look 31 years old.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I was
Thank
like,
you.
How do you have a 31-year-old? But I wasn't going to ask. 'Cause, you know,
It's the baby face.
yeah, it's the
for
baby
sure.
face.
Yeah. But so yeah, I mean, so that's when I moved to Nashville is when all that kind of came out in the media, and it was just this big, nasty celebrity divorce attorney, and it was just
Right.
But once I got out to LA, it was kind of starting over, so it was like
Right.
a scary, okay, and and for me it was a little bitter just because
Yeah.
I'd given everything to Christian music.
Right.
It wasn't the only thing I did,
Right.
but it was just a huge part of my life, and I still believed it was
But
just
so now you're recreating yourself.
just starting over, still dealing. It was a 10-year custody battle, so it was a tough time. Plus relocating to the West Coast, which is way expensive
And different than that.
and different, and it was scary. But thankfully, I had enough clients just through different genres besides Christian music that
Right.
there was enough to just keep us afloat. I had my music partner, Sean Peterson. We moved out together. And we were actually married for a while. We actually came out together, and
Okay.
both were married to women, and both grew up conservative Christian. So it was just being gay was never an option,
Right.
until we fell in love, and it was like, oh,
Yeah.
crap, what do we do now? So anyway, it was a crazy time, and everything happens for a reason. But it got me out to LA, and just continued to do the same thing, just scoring, producing. Out here, started finding a lot of great young talent.
Okay.
So it's been fun the past decade or so, just help build these young artists and teach them just from all my years of experience.
Because you've worked with artists from all different genres.
Every kind of genre you can imagine.
Yeah. Give us some examples.
Well, I mentioned a few, like Roy Orbison.
Yeah.
Michael McDonald was great to work with. That was a very surreal moment.
Right.
You know who Michael is, right?
Yeah.
And so I did a song. We did a remake of Marvin Gaye's "Ain't That Peculiar."
Okay.
And so the surreal moment was we're arranging the song, and me being the program and arranger, it was in a studio. It was me, and then it was Michael McDonald, and then the producer was David Pack, the lead singer for Ambrosia.
Okay.
Make a wish, baby. That guy.
Yeah.
So we're in this room, and I'm programming,
Do it again.
and they're both singing at the same time, and I'm just trying to wrap my head around what I'm hearing. I mean, because these guys you grew up with,
Right.
You hear their songs, you know immediately who it is. But they're super sweet guys and just very creative. And Michael was a joy to work with. And I actually brought in one of the Grammy-winning Christian groups. They sang on it as well.
Okay.
DC Talk. And
I remember DC Talk.
oh yeah,
Oh
Blast
yeah.
from the Past.
Oh yeah. Wow.
So their record was actually the first one that won the Grammy.
Okay.
You worked on that shit?
Yeah,
Oh wow.
I did the
Did you say LOL?
I said, oh wow.
Oh, I think you said LOL. I was
oh
like, what?
wow.
I remember the day I got my first
TBH.
DC Talk album. It was probably that album.
The Free at Last.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
mhm.
produced that.
Yeah. Wow.
So I
no
wrote
shit.
that song,
Oh
yeah.
wow. Cool.
So yeah, like I said, I mean, I got to work with most big Christian artists,
Right.
which was great, from Carmen to Larnell Harris to Sandy Patty.
So you end up leaving working with Christian artists, or you ended up just expanding.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the Christian artists, just to be honest, are probably more liberal, but they know that their fans are conservative. So I think personally they were okay working with me, but then
Right.
they had fans going, "Why are you working with this guy?
Right.
He's
right.
a sinner," or whatever they think,
Yeah.
So they were kind of just put in the place where they had to choose
Right.
either a career or
Yeah.
work with me.
They had to make decisions.
Yeah,
Unfortunately.
some did continue,
Right.
just on a behind the scenes level, not so much on the stage with them,
Right.
Because that's where it got.
Yeah.
People started going, hey,
Yeah.
how come you have
Yeah.
an out person that's being honest on your
Yeah.
stage or ministry? You
Yeah.
know what they say.
Right.
I mean, it was just I knew what was coming when I came out, and it was actually. It was the hardest thing I ever did, but it was easier than I thought.
Right. Did you think your music career would stop when were you like, I'm going to do something else?
No, I mean, it was at the time where I was probably at my peak in Christian music. And so it was difficult and scary.
Right.
But and once I got out here, I was like, I wish I'd have been out here sooner.
Right.
Because there's so many opportunities and there's so much going on. The only thing I miss about Nashville, mostly besides my friends,
And the Nashville hot chicken.
well, here's a funny thing about Nashville hot chicken.
Here we go.
Okay, let me tell you, I was there for 18 years, and Nashville hot chicken was not a thing. I'd never heard of it until I moved here, and everybody started serving Nashville hot chicken, and we were like, what is a Nashville hot chicken?
Because in Nashville,
literally.
Nashville, they just call it chicken.
Yeah, Hattie B's, she started making a spicy version, and then they used to like, oh, well, let's call that Nashville hot chicken. I don't know. It was just, where did we get that? It was just, I was literally going, what is Nashville? That's not a thing.
If you want Chinese food in China,
and now it's
just
like,
called food.
now you can go to, you go to London and they have Nashville hot chicken.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I guess it's a thing. It was interesting how that happened.
Yeah.
But it's funny you brought that up. Yeah.
Just call it food.
It's still spicy food that's good.
Yeah.
But,
Did you like that, Justin? Chinese food in China, is it just called food?
oh. And it's just fries in France. Yeah.
We got jokes on the Everyday GSD podcast in Hollywood.
Yeah.
But let's talk about. I mean, you sold over 15 million records, right?
Yeah, just all the different projects I worked on.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've been really fortunate. I mean, and there's been a lot of. Let me tell you a couple of stories. One is.
I'd love it. That's why you're on the show, my man.
Years ago, my music partner was looking on YouTube, and he came across this 12-year-old kid that was posting videos of singing and playing in every instrument. He would do pop, R&B. He would even do worship music. He could even make up a song on the spot, which they call singing in spirit. You just sing whatever comes to you. And it was Justin Bieber.
Okay.
And so I was like, he showed him to me. He was like, this kid's really talented. And more talented than what they ultimately let him be.
Okay.
To be honest, when he was a kid, because he literally played every instrument phenomenally, and he could just turn a guitar over and play it left-handed or right-handed. It was like he's a phenom.
Right.
And so I wrote and was like, dude, talented. So his mom wrote me back. She's like, oh my gosh. She's like, can you call me? So I called her, and she was like, I am a single mother in Canada, and people are starting to call because his videos are really just starting to
get popular.
Blown up.
Because he was just on the street playing, right?
He was just a YouTuber. He would just post because he loved music. That's all he did. He would just had a little basement studio where he would do it. So she was freaking out because she didn't know anything about music. All these people are calling. They want her to sign deals. And so I was like, I'm a parent. Trust me. And I produce music. So, I said, don't let anybody push you or force you or rush you into signing anything. I said, if you could find a great entertainment attorney, I would do that. But don't feel pressure, because that's a lot of, in entertainment.
But it must be even hard to find a great entertainment lawyer if you don't know what you're looking for.
That too. But mainly the thing was, because I've worked with so many artists that got signed to a really bad deal. So I'm either helping them, salvage and it's just business.
Right.
People try to get away with what they can. That's business, unfortunately.
Bad business, but business.
So I just told her, I was like, just don't feel pressure. If you feel pressured, then don't do it. That's a really good sign that you shouldn't do it. If somebody's like, you got to do it now or it's not going to happen, don't do it.
Yeah.
And so
that's a good rule of thumb for almost everything.
It is. If somebody's pressuring you, there's a reason they're pressuring you.
Yeah. Yeah. So he was making music on YouTube.
Yeah.
Right. So how do you think, how has the publishing world changed?
Oh my gosh.
With streaming platforms, and do people have to get more creative the way they make an income?
Yeah,
it's a good, what I mean?
It's a good and bad thing, because
right.
I went from, the studios back in the day used to cost millions of dollars. You would have to go in the studio, they would cost thousands of dollars a day, and you had to use those. And then there were only a few record labels that sent stuff to radio. So you had to get signed with them to get any play or distribution. Which the positive thing is they would invest into you a lot more than they do now.
Right.
The good point is now it's so easy for anybody to put anything out there. So we hear and we found a lot more amazingly talented people because it's not just the 5 or 6 main labels that are dictating what we hear.
Right. And these people were out there before, but they couldn't be heard.
Right. Just nobody knew. Like, you could be the most talented artist in the world, but if nobody sees your painting, nobody would know that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
the same with music. There's so many talented people.
Right.
So now we're finding, and even just the singing competitions change things.
Right.
Because before it was like, you had to be young, perfect looking.
Yeah.
They basically were signing embryos back in the day. You know.
Yeah.
If you were over 25, you were too old.
Yeah.
And now we're getting artists that are 50s, 60s.
Yeah.
That
Like to
people
show
like.
the voice.
They're good. Yeah, exactly. Which has opened up so the labels have had to morph as well. So they're basically marketing, distribution now. And so they don't just sign everything.
Right.
And it's better for the artist too, ultimately, if you can get out there because you control. Because like I said, so many artists get signed and get shelved because you're too much like one of their artists they don't want you to compete.
So they literally sign you so you don't.
They'll sign you, pay you a little bit of money, but then you can't release anything for 10 years.
Wow, that's so crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
That's my radio voice. That's so crazy.
it sucks, but it's like, well, if you're going to compete with a big artist, then it makes sense. And if you didn't check the fine print and did it, I mean, it sucks. And I've had a lot of artists that happened to. So it's like, so that's why, especially musicians and artists, they get so like, I just want to make it, and if I get signed, I'll have made it.
Right.
Yeah.
And they don't know that they could be hurting themselves by getting signed.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's been big actors, a lot of Motown artists, they just didn't know the business, and they just got taken advantage of. And
Right.
so that's why the main thing, don't rush it. Really make sure you understand what could come out of this. And then, it's just, because I've worked on records where they're like, they're trying, they're not sure about how to split the publishing or writing, and so they're like, well, why don't I just pay you this amount of money? I'm like, well, what if it sells platinum, or what if it blows up? Then I'm going to resent the fact that this wasn't fair.
Right.
And then sure enough, I would agree to something, and then it would blow up.
But how do you let young performers know that?
Well, it's just, hopefully another negative about the new industry is that people, like, they call me to produce them, and they're like, well, how much is it? And I'm like, well, this is what I need for me in my studio. And they're like, but I can get this guy on Craigslist to do it for $25 an hour.
But you're gonna get a $25 an hour job.
Well, I'm like, you may get what you pay for, and that's why I do I do get hired to fix records that people do that, and then they hate it, and it's like, well, you need to do it till you like it. Don't just.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are just kind of, I don't know, the MP3 dumbed down the music industry a little bit, because people, they don't necessarily care about quality so much, sonic quality.
Right.
I mean, there's more and more people wanting to be true audiophiles where they get the nice, they're starting to print vinyl again.
Right.
It just has that analog warmth that you can't get, but people, if they're just listening on their phone, they don't care.
Yeah.
So it's just like when I used to do a lot of, back in Nashville, I was doing a lot of that scoring stuff, and I would do like network campaigns, like the fall campaign for NBC or something.
Okay.
And but I learned really quick that back in the day, because you used to have to overnight stuff, because you couldn't just send something over the internet. So,
right.
So like if Discovery or somebody needed something, like, hey, we need 30 seconds, it's about Battleship, so just make it masculine and 30 seconds, and put our logo at the end.
Off to FedEx and just overnight it.
Yeah, like, and a lot of times I'm running to the airport literally in my car and just knocking on the door, because it's got to be there tomorrow. They got to play it. It's going to be on air tomorrow. So then we started doing stuff like the fall campaign for NBC. So I would put together this whole arrangement, and then I would overnight them a cassette to listen to it. And then if that was cool, then I would send them the digital master. But they would just use the cassette. I was like, oh, what? Like, that's horrible quality. And every time it plays, because they didn't care. They just wanted music. But every time it plays, it's going to be a different speed because tape stretches. So from then on, I would never send a cassette. I had to learn it's digital only. Because who knew, I was just trying to get, them to approve it.
Right.
So then we could wrap it up. But it's like, oh my gosh. So when they started doing that, it scared me to death. I was like, I've got to make sure I send something decent quality.
Yeah.
So
what are you doing now?
I'm still doing the same thing.
Okay. What projects are you working on?
I'm still working with a lot of artists, a lot of young artists. And then
Can you tell us anyone or no?
And
you don't have to.
No, a lot of them are independent.
Okay.
So they're still trying to get out there.
Right. Because someone hires you because they need your expertise and your talent to, for lack of a better word, catapult them to the next level?
Yeah, and a lot of it is some artists, they've never recorded well, or they have all these songs. Like I have these young artists that have written literally 1,000 songs, and they're all amazing. But they don't know how to record, they don't know how to produce, they don't know how to make the tracks. So just even I've helped like mentor some of these younger artists to learn how to do what I do. Because if they have so much material, they need to learn how to just turn it out.
Right.
So because it's not about me taking all their money, it's about more and more people being able to make great music.
Right.
So I'm doing a lot of that. I taught for a while, which was kind of cool. It kind of reignited the fire for music. Because when you do it for so long, anything, it becomes a job. You get jaded. So it was nice to be reminded, that's that love of music that people have.
Right.
And so it really helped me reevaluate my abilities and made me a better musician. And it was fun to share all these years of experience with people.
But isn't that everyday GSD mentality of sitting back and refocusing on what is the best for you?
Yeah.
What's right for you, right? Because when you start to burn out, I'll use that as an expression, you start to burn out in your industry, at some point you have to sit back and go, okay, how do I recalibrate?
Right.
Because if I don't recalibrate, I'm going to produce bad work, or I'm not going to want to do this and just leave.
Right.
So when you can recalibrate, when you can sit back and go, you know what, I need to take a little break, refocus, understand what we're doing here, and then get back at it, and then you have the passion for it again. Because I can just see, seeing you sitting next to me, I can see it in your face. You love what you do.
Oh, I do. I mean, I love music. I mean, that's all I think about.
And you've changed a lot of people's lives.
Oh, thanks.
I mean, you have, right? Music changes people's lives.
And the thing about music, it's kind of like, I tell especially writers, well, creators in general, it could be any kind of creator. Our creative works will be here forever. After we're long gone, we're still going to have, my music's still going to be around. I mean, it's like real estate. It's like an investment into something that will just never end. Right. So it's like people don't think about that.
No.
Because there's many songs that we still perform that the writers have been long gone.
Right.
So it's just cool. It's almost like you build a legacy that will just continue on without you.
Yeah. And people are so focused on the money, right? But they really should be focused on what they want to do.
Yeah. Because if you focus on the money, you're going to be disappointed.
Right.
And especially people in music, you have to really be creative to be able to transition with the trends. So as old as I am, I still have to keep up with what technology is, with the styles that are out there. There's a million subgenres upon subgenres, and there's always a new one, and there's always a new 20 of them. So it's like just keeping up and learning, how do they make those sounds? How do they do, EDM stuff? How do they do, dubstep? How do they do all these? So you always have to keep, which I love puzzles. I guess that's why I like this kind of thing.
No, I love it. I'm just sitting here listening to you talk, and I'm thinking about the other episodes that we had here in Hollywood during the Hollywood edition. I feel like it's a theme that if you don't focus on the money will come.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be smart, and you can't, you gotta.
But you can't do shit for free,
right? You gotta pay the bills,
right?
So there is a bottom line, but if you're just all about trying to get rich,
it's not gonna happen.
And here's, especially when I was in Nashville, people would move to Nashville, and they would ask me like, what do I got to do to make it? And I'm like, well, just move here, get to know people, offer to do stuff for free, just get to know people and let them get to know what you do. And but then they would move. First of all, they would move with their whole family, which was like, ugh.
Yeah. Now you're.
Yeah. Now you really got to pay the bills. But
you can't stay on someone's couch when you have.
But after,
with
like,
you.
literally after a month, they would call crying because, like, I've been here like 4 weeks and I haven't got any jobs. I'm like, what? Like, you need to be here a year just to get network people.
Yeah.
And offer to do stuff for free. Like, if you think you're going to move anywhere and just jump into the industry, in any industry,
Yeah.
People see artists that blow up. Like Lady Gaga, when she came out, people were like, oh, wow, she just blew up overnight. No, she's been working her ass off her whole life. Same with, like, Beyonce. Like, they were, as little kids, had been training and rehearsing and just honing their craft. It's like people, when you see them, there's way much more to it than that.
Yeah.
Years of training, practice, learning, performing.
You've been doing this for, we'll say, over 35 years, even though you don't look 35.
Stop it.
Say it again. Obviously, you have tons of awards. You even have the Dove Award. See how I came back to that? Yeah. Grammys, Emmys, all these things. You've been a songwriter.
Let me explain. Because earlier he was going, so you've won a Dove Award? So it looks like Dove, but it's actually the bird, the dove.
No, but it's really impressive. I know you're a busy man, and I thank you for coming on the show. But I do want you to know how much we appreciate, as someone who loves to listen to music, and knowing that there's so much hard work that goes on behind the scenes that people just like you said, Lady Gaga. Oh, where did she come from? She's been working her ass off for years. You were singing in the Christian you were producing in the Christian circuit when you were a little kid, and now you're no longer a little kid, but you've sold over 50 million records or 50 million worldwide, right? And you've all these awards, but this didn't happen yesterday. That happened for all your hard work, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you one last message for the audience in the everyday GSD world from that you can give them, that they can sit back and go, yeah, I get it. That's what I got to do.
I would say try to find a way to make a living doing what you love, whatever that is. If you love music, then if you're not a great musician, you can still love music and you can still work in the music industry. Like if you love being in movies, but you don't necessarily want to be an actor, there's so many outlets in a movie, or any kind of film. There's bajillion jobs where you're still a part of the creative team, but you don't have to necessarily be A or B.
Right.
So just choose something that makes you happy, and then just be smart. Marketing. Every person should take business, contract, just marketing, because no matter what you do, you're going to have to just know that. That's something I failed to do, because when I grew up a long time ago,
that's great advice.
It was about just learning your craft.
Yeah.
But they don't tell you what to do about taxes and money and investing and
how to read reports.
Because so many big pop groups that blew up and made millions, they weren't taught what to do it, and so they ended up broke.
Yeah.
Because nobody taught them what to do with the money.
Yeah.
Or how to remarket themselves after their, the height of their career went down. The greatest iconic artists are smart and they know how to remarket themselves. Yeah. Look at Madonna. She's been reborn many times. So that's just a brilliant marketing mind.
Yeah. It's a great message. And I think the takeaway from that is understand the business side of the job you're doing, so you don't get taken advantage of, and you don't just go obsolete. You don't just disappear. And you look at someone like Madonna, who's been, for lack of a better word, recreated multiple times. Yeah. But I look at someone like yourself sitting next to me, which is super impressive with your resume. And you could have never went to Nashville, or you could have went to Nashville and never came to California. But you made choices that you thought were the right for you at the time, and you made sure you were learning and doing what needed to be done. And that's the everyday GSD way.
That is.
So I want to thank you for being on the show.
Thanks,
but
man.
I do have a little gift for you because you are an everyday GSD guy.
Okay.
And that's proof in the pudding. So here's an everyday GSD T-shirt for you.
Sweet. Thank
And
you.
thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, man.
It's an honor. It's an honor to meet you. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Yeah, and people can follow us on Instagram under iHitPlay.
Perfect.
Because our production name is HitPlay, HITPLAY.
We'll make sure we put all that stuff out there
great.
too.
Awesome.
Yeah. And on the bottom of the screen and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Awesome. You're the best, man. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for watching the Everyday GSD podcast. Episodes come out on the 1st and 15th of the month. If you want to watch people or listen to people that Everyday GSD, please download and subscribe wherever you listen or watch the Everyday GSD podcast. Everyday GSD.